Welcome to IT Live, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Texas home here in Boyd. Wednesday morning show. We go into some strategies, schematics, whatever we have on the table, but we talk concrete football usually. The first topic of the day is Eric reported some position changes about a week ago, and Ian is going to tell us what it actually means on the field. And we talked about specifically, let's start with old Gilbo. Thought Gilbo was going to go to corner. I introduced some doubt to that because I guess I misread something. Yeah, and then Gilbo did go to corner. So let's talk Gilbo first. And what do you think that move does for us?
Well, corner is second most important position on defense. And you can't be bad at corner. If you're bad at corner, you cannot be good on defense. And then in terms of like force multiplication, I think it's like the number 2 best place to have a really great player behind defensive tackle. You move Jalen Gilbo to cornerback. So you have Manny Muhammad, who's a sure thing to be a good, capable corner, right? He might be really, really good next year, but we've already seen him be good.
Yeah.
Stable. Then you got all these young guys competing for that second spot. So you have Kobe Black, Warren Roberson, and I believe there's another guy that's in that worthy of mention as a contender, but I'm blanking on who it is. But they're all like, we need to see it, you know? Let's see here. That's probably it. Other than a freshman, they got a bunch of good freshmen coming in too. So if you move Gilbo to corner and he translates there as well as we think he could, you're set. You're going to have 2 really good corners if he translates, right? And then any of the young guys that become good, now you can either sub-package easily, or you can rotate, or you can survive an injury without becoming terrible at corner. So I think every year for a national contending team, you want 3 corners that can be at least good in a big game. Like Georgia last year, when they beat Texas in the SEC championship, we're starting their preseason 3rd or 4th cornerback, right? And it was fine, obviously. So that's the level you need to be at to win a championship. I think that's mainly what this is about. Also, I don't think nickel is his best position anyway, because sometimes he lacks situational awareness. There's a lot going on inside, and I think he's going to be better when he has simpler assignments, and it's more about skill and technique in a one-on-one matchup.
And the experience matters too, right? You get Muhammad, who's experienced outside. Jalen, experienced inside, but still an experienced player. That matters too. And so you, like you said, you can mix the young guys in, and that's solid. And then what's your point here? Here's how the position has looked since PK took over the defense for 2021.
That's nickel.
Okay.
So everybody has moved away from nickel. Gilbo, I think, was pretty good at nickel. He didn't have the same level of impact as Barron did at that position by any stretch of the imagination. But he was really solid there, and the sack numbers don't really reflect it, but I thought he was actually a really good blitzer, which he can still do at boundary corner. Boundary corner and nickel are very similar because they're both like the immediate perimeter guy outside of the action.
Yeah. So, and if you're on the hash closest to the, boundary side too, you're about the same spacing as the nickel.
Yep. So it's good.
Go send the boundary corner blitz. We saw that versus Quinn.
Yeah.
But that's why it is dangerous. You got to be aware.
Yeah, you don't necessarily look out there, but it is close enough for the guy to get there, especially when it's a corner, because corners are fast. They're the fastest guy on the field.
Yeah. And so, and PK, I mean, we've heard about Gilbo going back a couple years. I mean, the coaches, PK in particular, has really liked him. And so you hear who they like early, and it generally pans out. And Gilbo is one that they've mentioned a bunch. So I'm excited to see him kind of maximize at corner. You're good with all athleticism there and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to play a lot of like cover 3 type corner.
Okay.
Where he's playing a deep third and reading what's in front of him. I don't think they're going to have him like play press, bump and run like Manny Muhammad as much. Probably play more off. And so then it's similar to nickel, but with just a little bit less to take in because there's only action to one side of you and the other side is the sideline.
Right.
And that's what Barron did last year. Barron ended up running extremely well at the combine. But the way they played Barron a lot last year and the way they played Gilbo, you can absolutely be like Richard Sherman played that way, and he was 6'3", and he ran like a 4.65 or something in a 4.3 shuttle.
And Gilbo can beat that.
Gilbo can beat that. No, he's not going to beat Sherman up here. That's part of what made Sherman so great.
Yeah.
You can with that cover 3 style match where they're like playing back. You don't have to have the same level of athleticism at corner as you do in like quarters, or if your corner is playing more tight man coverage like Muhammad does.
Cool. Okay, so if Gilbo's out to corner, that means nickel is open, which we call the star position, just to confuse people further. A nickel is a star.
The reason for that, everybody, is that it used to be the nickel was just like your backup corner that came in sometimes on third down. And people would be like, well, he could be, a nickel corner in the NFL, which meant not a starter is what that meant. Like a backup, your 5th guy.
Yeah.
And then it became where everybody's starting lineups included a nickel.
Mm-hmm.
And so people wanted a more 50B positive term to use. Something more exciting for the kids than nickel.
Yeah.
And so most teams use star.
Yeah. I didn't realize
back. You're the star.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was a branding exercise. But that's interesting. It makes sense. Yeah, because now everyone's base is a nickel. Everyone nickel base. Everyone's like, we're a 3-4 base. It's like, yeah, I get that that's what you're building on, but really your core defense is nickel. All right, so Jelani McDonald to star. That's also something that you've been advocating for. Big special athlete, flashes on the tape all the time. Getting him in the mix. I mean, a nickel needs to be able to get in the mix in the run game. It has some help over the top in the pass game, so speed's not the ultimate thing. And then, like you said, you need to be able to blitz too. So Jelani McDonald, who I don't know a person that's not excited about Jelani. So what do you think this move to star does versus him being at safety?
I think I liked this mostly for getting him and Derek Williams on the field together.
Okay.
Which I don't think even comes up in this article. But that's my number one here. Is that I think he can be good here. I have probably more questions here than I do with Gilbo at corner. McDonald played nickel, and he started at nickel against Arizona State, or star, whatever. And he played there a bunch. Anytime a team would play like a second tight end, but the tight end was really more of a receiver, they would play McDonald on him.
So it's a big nickel. They would go
big nickel, exactly. Yeah. And I'm curious about how this translates if like Akina's like, hey, we're going to play less zone and we're going to play more like straight up man. How good is he going to be at turning and running laterally with slot receivers? I don't really know. He might be amazing at it. because he's always been regarded as something of a freak.
Yeah.
But 6'2" is not like your prototypical ideal nickel size because there's so much lateral change of direction that comes into it. And so I'm curious to see how it works.
Dude, if McDonald can turn and run too, man, damn. That's gonna be crazy, dude. The NFL's gonna love that. A more attacking style defense with McDonald at nickel. How do you think he's gonna be on the blitz? So here's what I think too. If he is matched up with slots, if he can get his hands on them too, that's going to have a lot of value. Rerouting them. The question is, yes, can he go vertical with these guys? And then how do you kind of tweak the defense? If he can't, how do you tweak the coverages to protect that? But on the flip side, how do you think he's going to do in the other half of the game when he does blitz and when he does have to hold up against the run?
Yeah, there's different things you could do. You could zone it anytime you think a team is likely to attack him vertically, and then just put it on the corner and the free safety over the top. And then you could do it more man when you're less worried about that. So there's different things they can do. It'll probably be okay. I think that obviously what Coach Top is getting at, the blitz and the run support from nickel, you figure go way up with McDonald. Also, not just the run support, but the way they play screens. That's like a maybe a super underrated element of playing nickel.
Dude, that was Barron's like superpower at nickel.
Barron was so good at it. Barron wasn't even necessarily because he was physical. It was because he had this sort of push-pull move to get off blocks.
Yeah.
And receivers couldn't handle it. And so he was always beating blocks.
And he had this recognition that was like instantaneous.
He was a real one.
Yeah.
McDonald just I clipped one of I wrote about him at Star like a couple of weeks ago, and I clipped one, I think we talked about it, of Arizona State trying to go laterally on a screen against him.
Yeah.
And the receiver meets him at the block like 6 yards downfield. And McDonald like sets his feet and drives the receiver all the way back to the line of scrimmage before the ball crosses the line of scrimmage. And it just manhandled their perimeter screen game. So that's a big plus.
Yeah.
I'm sure they can, if Phil Sami is really good in man coverage behind him, or Derek Williams is back and he's as good in man coverage as we think he could be, they could also blitz the crap out of the nickel position next year. And I know that used to be this thing that everybody got sick of, PK blitzing the nickel. But that hits different when your protections are worried about Colin Simmons and Trey Moore and Ethan Burke.
Dude,
yeah. When you were worried about Ovia Gofu and
Dude, if you have like Simmons on the far side. I know Trey's at linebacker now, but let's assume you got a pass rusher on the opposite side. You have Anthony Hill in the middle, and then you have an overloaded nickel. There's 4 spots that can get your quarterback sacked. So like even if you're sending protection to Simmons, you're going to be outnumbered. You're going to have to put a line or a running back onto McDonald blitz. That's the nickel blitz has a lot more value when we're able to send pass rushers from 4 different spots.
Because they're not, Because what you would see is Texas would bring the nickel blitz, and then they would be like shaded to it, and so then you're like 185-pound Jade Barron or Jalen Gilbo comes to the edge, and then there's just a huge blocker waiting for him, and you're like, well, that was stupid.
Yeah,
great job. They're not going to be waiting for him.
Correct.
Anymore. You're going to get the free hitter off the edge.
And if you want to answer for all the pass rushers, you could go like 12 personnel, right? To try to max protect. And then at that point, then you're given like one-on-one matchups. You're able to cover on the back end because you only have like 2 receivers going out. So it helps your coverage too. There's a lot of chess here that if you have a bunch of pass rushers, it affects everything. And that matters. As
long as you can stop the run, which we'll get to more so in our flag football section.
Phil Sami is Coach Top heard that Phil Sami is the fastest guy on defense. Need him on the back end.
I think Eric said that. I think that's the intel is an Inside Texas intel piece because I think Eric was tweeting about that.
He's going to be so aggressive.
Yeah, funny that you should say Nansen and not PK. The thing with safety, though, is that if you're blazing fast and you know how to play the position, then you have a special cocktail that is extremely potent. But when the safety is a 4-4 guy, but he doesn't know where to go, it's useless. It's freaking useless.
Yeah. You can all it actually could be the worst. You can end up making fast mistakes.
Yes.
Yeah, you can go in the wrong direction quickly.
We used to watch every year. It was like one of these young guys is going to replace Blake Gideon.
Yeah.
And it never happened because the 4-4, 4-5 guys behind him on the depth chart couldn't figure out where to be. I still remember some of their names. And Blake Gideon always knew where to be. So
well, it was also, remember, that was what everyone was betting on with Taff. Taff won everybody over this season. I'm glad that we don't have to be in defensive Taff all off season how we were last. But that was the same thing with Taff, where people were like, one of these 5-stars is going to beat him. And it's like, man, safety is cerebral, man. Like it's not pure combine numbers at safety.
I can't wait to see what he runs. I'm really curious what his numbers will be if he gets a combine invite. Or
I want to see it. He needs to gain weight. That'll have value. And then I want to see what he runs. He's going to interview like crazy. His tape's going to be awesome. So it'll just come down to measurables at that point.
He, when I saw him on the field at open practice last year, he was a lot like taller than I was expecting. Everybody looks way bigger, like in pads.
Right, yeah.
You're just like, wait, that guy's that much bigger than me?
It's like when I was watching the NBA as a kid and didn't realize everyone was 6'9".
Yeah, Steph Curry would tower over you.
Yeah.
And then when I would talk to him or see him in interviews, you're like, wait, he's not nearly as like beefed up and jacked as your prototypical successful white safety.
he's gonna need to gain weight.
Yeah,
that'll have value.
And there's room for it. It's strange that he hasn't for how hard he works. And maybe he's been afraid of losing speed or something. I don't know. Maybe he's a hard gainer.
Who knows? All right, guys, before we keep going, let's hear from Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Days like this, the anticipation's half the fun. The call to adventure. Possibilities in every direction. Look at that. The stories you'll bring back. Even the true ones. And already, you can't wait until next time. From first catch to biggest catch of the season, this is where it starts. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Have fun out there.
Connor.
Yep.
In that ad, they had like briefly, they were like going out to the boat, and they had one of those like collapsible wagons.
Yeah.
Those are freaking clutch. We just got
for every parent I've seen, that's like the absolute move. Either you can haul your kids' stuff or your kids in them.
Yeah. And we kept seeing, we had some really nice strollers, like jogging strollers that look like off-roading machines.
Yeah.
But we started seeing parents at the zoo or at the park or whatever with those things, and we were just like, thou shalt not covet.
Yeah. They look clutch. I've seen them everywhere. I actually one time saw someone was able to carry around their aging mother in it. And I was like, hey, if it works, it works. All right. We also have another person to star. Niblet.
Yeah.
So Niblet he was at running back. He was initially a receiver.
Yeah. Went
to running back. Now he's at star. We hear good things about Niblet out of high school, total athlete. So Niblet's in this weird space where they keep moving around because they like him. They're trying to they know he brings value to a position. And they do like him. But it's like him getting into being a starter seems like a longer path. He's an interesting player because I know that he's liked behind the scenes. They keep moving him because he's valuable, but how does he get, break into that starter kind of role is what we'll have to see with Niblet.
Yeah, I think in this section, I just noted that he reminded me of a half dozen dudes like him that Dwayne Aquina molded into amazing safeties or nickels in the past. There's a lot of guys that Akina had that no one thinks of them as being position changes, but like they were like high school, they might have played some defensive back, but they also played like quarterback and running back and receiver. Sometimes people say like there's some people that are convinced that you shouldn't turn those guys into cornerbacks in college. It's probably like one of Paul's strongest pet peeves is when people say that. But usually like a high school is going to play their best athlete in a position where he gets the ball a lot.
All right.
It's a pretty serious luxury to take a star 4-4 elite athlete and use them at corner in high school when like half the quarterbacks in your schedule may not even be able to throw a hitch and hit it 5 times out of 10.
Yeah, and they can't even throw to the field.
Yeah.
You know.
So he reminds me of Nathan Vasher. He reminds me of Quandre Diggs. Earl Thomas was like that. The same kind of build, like compact, powerful, explosive. So I love him as Adrian Phillips is another good one. I love his fit at star for Texas. How long it'll take him to get there, I would guess. It depends on his mind and aptitude for it. But I would think like 2026 is when he would be number one or number 2 on the depth chart. If he gets to back up nickel this year, then you know that they've struck gold. Yeah.
And yeah, you can tell. I mean, that's why they're moving him so much. There's some times where you see that they move players because they're warehousing them. I won't mention the player, but like they took a linebacker and made him a running back a couple years ago, and that was purely a depth play. And that player realized it and transferred out. But that's not what's occurring with Niblett. And so they like Niblett. They know he has value, and they keep adding him to different rooms because they want him to be able to produce.
He was starting to flash the most on special teams as a gunner, and he was. We should pull up his hits at some point this offseason. But it was like, wait, if this guy is so good at running and hitting, and he's like buried at running back, and he's never going to be more than a bit player at running back, but he can run and tackle. Hang on, Yeah.
To your special teams point, this is a really unfortunate abbreviation for his position, but they should change Niblett's positions to STD, Special Teams Demon. We might tweak that one, but I think your core point stands that he's an active player on special teams. Niblett will transfer. Kid wants to play offense. We'll see. And Drew Kelson, the one and only. What's up, Drew? I love how Ryan Niblett is continuing to find a place to create value for himself on this roster. Yeah, and the coaches are moving him around to try to create value for him too. So, and that's what the word on Niblett was, is like, man, you've got a kid who's a good athlete, a good mental eval. He's kind of amorphous. Like, we don't know exact position. Like, can he play wide receiver? Yes, but not necessarily behind 3 5-stars. Can he play running back? Yes, but not behind like 2 running back by trades. So it's like, that's the tricky part, is like, how do you find a spot for him? And and those players often make their way to secondaries. And so that's interesting to see what they're doing there. But I like Niblett. Team like Niblett. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's all upside. If he doesn't work out, they're not really counting on him to work out anywhere. So if he ends up being a star defensive back, like not just the position, but like an NFL starter, that's almost like found money. That's exactly why you take guys like that.
Yeah. And then another thing that, Ian, you were lobbying for this move, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is another Ian Boyd prediction, and he nailed it again. Trey Moore to linebacker, huh? Ian, tell us about it.
Well, he's built like an inside linebacker. He's good on the edge. There's not a problem with playing Trey Moore on the edge. He was great at it last year. But as soon as they got him, I was like, he looks an awful lot like the sorts of dudes that Bill Belichick was always taking at New England and moving back and forth between outside linebacker and inside linebacker. And he's extremely quick. When you watch him drop into coverage, he did it quite a bit at UTSA, and he was very good in space. I think he did it some at Texas, but not a ton. His athletic profile is perfect for being like a really good NFL linebacker. They couldn't really do that last year because preseason it was presumed we need this guy coming off the edge. That's why he's here.
Right.
But now that they have maybe the best edge in the country, potentially the best edge in Texas football history, who doesn't ever seem to get tired, Colin Simmons.
Yeah.
It's like you could keep platooning him, but there's some
opportunity cost.
Huge opportunity cost.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Trey Moore, hey, I'm going to come back, but I'm not just going to be a role player, right? Like, I'm not just going to be a third down guy. I want to play. So now he's at linebacker. We have 2 starting linebackers, inside linebackers. How does this work?
Oh, one of those guys goes to the bench, and you can guess.
One of the starters goes to the bench?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not going to be Anthony Hill.
No.
So okay, but that's how they make it work with keeping up their promise to Trey.
Yeah, I think you play Simmons at Buck still, the weak side edge.
Mm-hmm.
You could back him up with Trey Moore in a pinch, or just periodically get Trey Moore snaps there too. Or you can back it up with Vasek or Umeozulu or Orogbo. And then you got Burke and presumably Vasek on the other edge, maybe Lance Jackson. So you have plenty of depth to do this.
Yeah.
And then you still have Hill at Mike linebacker. And then you see if Trey Moore can learn to read flow as an off-ball linebacker, which is the big if.
I think he can. How involved is Will in pass defense?
In their single high, it's not that bad.
That's where I don't understand the Trey Moore move to linebacker and pass coverage. Like, I understand him dropping to a flat like an edge, but like true pass coverage, that's where I would be suspect.
Yeah.
Because there's edge speed and there's linebacker speed, right? So it's like he's quick enough off the edge, but that like
he's faster than your average inside linebacker by a lot. He can go backwards. I've seen him go backwards.
For real?
Oh yeah. There's no problem there. Now he has to learn how to.
What's his weight at? Like 240? Or is he light?
230, 240.
Okay.
He could be 250. It'd be fine. You have to learn how to read patterns in zone and know which ones to match up on. Maybe that could be tricky. I think the much trickier thing is run fits as an inside linebacker, where you're trying to read the flow and pulling guards and lead blockers and fit in the right spot at the right time. That usually takes, Anthony Hill is still not that quick and good at it. And he did it in high school every year.
And he's a crazy athlete.
So there's some questions there. If he's actually going to be good at that quickly or not. He probably only needs to be passable, right? So, I don't think any of Texas's inside linebackers were that amazing at it last year. Even Benda, you would see him make mistakes in run fits.
And then Benda would make up for it for like flying through the line and getting a sack.
Yeah, which Trey Moore, you figure,
can do that.
You're not going to lose that.
Well, I think the inside linebacker thing is fair to Trey Moore. I think it's going to help him for the NFL. It is interesting, though, for
– You figure he still blitzes the edge.
Huh?
You figure he still blitzes the edge on third down.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's still a third down package that you need to include him in. I don't know. I don't think it advantages Leonga.
No.
So I think that's where it's a little tricky. I think there's going to have to be a little bit of a tightrope here.
But Leonga can play either position. So
Yeah.
he'll still get snaps.
This is a good question by said. What happens to Spence then?
He backs him up. Spence is not like a grad transfer. He's got eligibility left. Spence is lucky to be a Longhorn and not a Razorback. He's gonna be fine.
So Spence backs up Moore versus Spence backs up Hill?
Yeah, one of them. I don't know. Probably maybe he plays some Sam on third down in the
I think
third
this is
quarter.
I'm not in love with this move. Like I think it makes sense for Trey. But
So it makes sense for the defense.
that's where I have questions. And like I don't know if it makes sense for our depth, like Ty Anthony Smith.
What do you mean for the depth? For improving depth, or
for getting guys real game. It's kind of like
I don't care about that.
I do. And so like
as long as your two deep are good, like
I think the two deep will be good, but it's like Leonga goes from starter to not. Ty Anthony Smith's on track to get significant reps, might not. That's why I don't love it. And like I said,
competition, Connor.
I think there's other ways to introduce competition. And also, like I said, I don't know with Will at like in pure pass coverage how this works. I don't know. I've been wrong once before in my life, so maybe it's the second time. But I'm not totally in love with. I think it makes sense, but not. I think it makes sense when I just hear the top contour of it. But like, I don't, in total context of the defense, I don't know if it makes a ton of sense to me. So
imagine if Trey Moore could be what Jalen Walker was last year for Georgia.
Yes. Great. If he can be Jalen Walker, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, like that would be sick. Man, he terrorized us.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I like Trey. It's nothing against Trey. It's just like I wanted to see those young linebackers get more real world reps.
I want to see Colin Simmons terrorize the edge, Connor.
I mean, he is. With Colin Simmons going to terrorize the edge no matter what.
Not if he's on the bench watching Trey Moore do it.
Yeah, but it's almost. Well, that's the tricky part, right? Like if we could just do like a third down package from hell and send them all, but the guarantee is like Trey's not a role player, because you can almost go because Trey can set the edge, so it doesn't mean that Colin and Trey have to even be at the same position in a lot of those things. Like Trey can play strong side. So yeah, I'll have to think more about it in depth.
Theoretically, just so everybody's clear, if this works and he can play Will linebacker, then this is your front six. Weak side edge, Colin Simmons. Defensive tackle, Alex January. Defensive tackle, Cole Brevard, whatever.
Shaw,
whatever. Strong side edge, Ethan Burke. So you already have Simmons and Burke off the edges.
Mm-hmm.
Weak inside linebacker, Trey Moore.
Mm-hmm.
Strong inside linebacker, Anthony Hill.
Mm-hmm.
You have 4 guys on the field that could play edge and be. You could have 4 guys on the field that could play edge and could get 10 sacks as a featured pass rusher in a season, all at the same time.
Yeah.
And then the McDonald or Gilbo blitzes off the corner nickel.
Mm-hmm. Schematically, yeah, if it works, man, it's schematically a huge pain in the ass.
Impossible to pass against.
Yeah. I have to think about it more. I mean, it is the front line of it is like, wow. Why would Spence transfer to be a backup? It doesn't make sense.
For a lot of reasons. He's not in Fayetteville anymore. He gets to play for the by God University of Texas. He gets Texas NIL instead of Arkansas NIL. He's in a great scheme that plays linebackers in different packages. And he's got like 3 years of eligibility left. So the clock, he's got time to.
And he's got combine development.
Yeah.
NFL development.
Also, he's from Texas. So he gets to be back in the Lone Star State.
Yep, gets to win.
Gets to win. Yeah, doesn't have to lose anymore. Wasn't he probably just gonna like have a lackluster year with Pittman, and then maybe want to transfer anyway a year later and have wasted a year in Arkansas? So
My buddy coached him at McClellan for us.
that's like that's a Houston area, isn't it? Isn't that a Houston burb kind of place?
I think so. Is
Yeah.
Blue from Klein Kane, right? That's so yeah, the front line pass rush ability crazy. If you rotate effectively, which we do, then you can get these young guys reps. You can get Leonga playing and engaged, Ty Anthony Smith playing and engaged, Spence playing and engaged. So it's a little bit of a tightrope, but this is what happens too whenever you got players everywhere, right? We're in a new era where it used to be we could not fill our starters, and now we're like, well, the third string guy needs reps, dude. So it's an interesting, it's more exciting. I like these problems, these puzzles more than our previous puzzles of like, do we have one linebacker?
Remember when the 2-4-5 against Oklahoma, there was an injury and the 2-4-5 went at the outside and inside linebackers. Ovia Gofo, Jet Bush, I think Jalen Ford, and then was it Tommy Brockermeyer?
Yeah.
That was tough.
Dude, that was funny. I would love to go back that off season. We weren't doing coverage on this channel, but just I would love to hear us try to justify what's going on there. Just be like, maybe, dude, maybe.
Well, it didn't sound that bad because the LSU transfer was solid at edge in preseason, and Coburn and Ojimo and whoever were so dominant up front that everybody looked clean.
Yeah.
Casey Thompson was like throwing a pick to Brockermeyer every practice.
Yeah.
And so it was like,
it made Brockermeyer look like, his upside was there.
Yeah. So it was like, I think we're going to be okay. And then turned out that the Texas offensive line was hot garbage.
Yeah.
And the edges all wore down and got hurt and weren't that great to begin with. And it just all went to hell.
Collapses. All right. Next up, guys, we're going to talk about Neal Brown's true worth as he joins the staff. What can he bring to the Texas Longhorns? But first, a word from David McClellan.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor. And I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach. And he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
Thank you, LC. Time to share this tab. The big dog, Neal Brown, Texas Tech to Troy to West Virginia to Texas. Ian, first we'll talk about, you have kind of like what he can do in the abstract in this article, and then we'll talk a little bit about your initial thoughts. I don't think you've written the article, but your initial thoughts on his quarterback run game and just the West Virginia style of running the ball. I was telling Paul, or it was either Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember, but at Texas Tech, they were like 65% pass, right? Then they get to Troy, and it's about a 50-50 split. And then through the iterations of West Virginia, now that they end up being like a 60-65% run team. Mm-hmm. So it's been interesting to watch Brown. Texas Tech wasn't his system, but to see that transition is interesting and points to
I think it was his system at Tech.
I just think of Tech as like high passing.
Yeah, but Tuberville is the head coach.
Yeah, that's Pryor. Yeah, that's not Air Radian. but that pragmatism, I think, is valuable. I like to see coaches that are not purely systematized, because it shows that they can adapt to personnel, situation, recruiting base, blah, blah, blah. Neal Brown, Ian leads with the cliche right there, right off the bat. Hard-nosed program guy. What does that mean, Ian?
His teams at West Virginia and Troy, like you're saying, when he was the head coach, they were defined by physical run game and defense.
Mhm.
So he's an air raid guy, and they had the air raid passing game installed the whole time, and they could get to it at times, but they weren't even necessarily always that good at it. But they were usually like pretty good at like they had who were they against? They had some drive against man, I don't remember. Maybe like Gary Patterson's last TCU team or something, where they lined up in 11 and ran duo like 20 times in a row and scored a touchdown. And we're just like
Pure ego ball.
smash mouth right down your throat. Just Tom Herman type inside zone over and over and over again, straight ahead. And they were good at that. And then at the end, they had Garrett Green, who was a dual threat quarterback. He was like 5'11", and a pretty decent passer, but also quick. And then they would play like 2-back sets with Jaheim White and CJ Donaldson.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like they had some like triple option football. So yeah, flexible, but as a head coach, he really put an emphasis on development, evaluation, physicality, and defense.
And fit.
So I think that's helpful for. I think he can be a good analyst for Texas because he was a play caller and he knows how to game plan and scout opponents. So that's great. That's like what Paul Chryst was doing for Texas. Gary Patterson did some of that. He's probably not as good at it as Gary Patterson, but whatever. And but then he also has, I think, just like an eye for program health. He knows how to get a good program, and he's also seen an unhealthy program because they had various problems at West Virginia.
Yeah. So like you said, Paul Chryst, who was was Paul Chryst at Wisconsin?
Yeah, and Pitt.
Okay. When Paul Chryst came in, and he was really focused on boosting our run game. So there's value there. I was also telling Paul too, I like any coach coming in that's thinking from an adversarial mindset. They'll tend to congeal rather fast into the culture, and that'll kind of change their thinking. But in the beginning, you want the coach that wants to attack this defense, wants to attack this offense. Is really valuable. I like when you have adversarial coaches at the beginning because they can tell you this is how I would play you. I also like coaches that come from non-top brands. It's a different mental exercise that they have to game plan for because they don't have the artillery advantage. They don't have the talent advantage. They don't have a lot of those things. But I also do think it's adjustment. I think can be a different style of play when you do have all those benefits too. But I generally like head coaches that have come from lower ranks and have had to be creative in their game planning. And I like when they're adversarial at first.
Yeah. Then the other big thing with Neal Brown, I guess two other big things with Neal Brown. One is that they were really good at finding defensive tackles in the South that they could actually get to come to West Virginia. Maybe that was all his D-line coach and defensive coordinator. I don't know. But Neal Brown is used to recruiting the South and recruiting it for defensive tackles. And that's like being able to find an eval and recruit those guys is one of the most valuable things you can do.
It is valuable. Because, yeah, we're going to have, like you said, the Justice Terry, who's going to be kind of insta starter, close to it, top of his class, high NIL earner. But you're going to need some some developmental longer term guys. So it's like, hey, can you find that Mississippi defensive tackle that's a 3-star that's going to grow into a monster in 3 years?
And then the other one is they ran that might be true about special teams. I can't remember if he did any of that or how good they were at West Virginia.
I think he does have special teams background.
They were 22nd in special teams last year, and they were not a very good team. So that's
good.
That's another, if he just did that, it'd be worth it.
Yeah.
One other thing I didn't write about, which I think I'll write about tomorrow or this weekend, is they ran a lot of quarterback option stuff. And I don't know if Sark necessarily needs help with that, because when he actually wants to scheme the quarterback run game,
he does it.
Seems like he knows what he's doing. So I guess it's not really that hard.
However, begrudgingly, he has to do it, but he's like, yes, here it is.
Neal Brown has for sure some experience with that. So depending on the extent to which they want to run Arch Manning next year, or KJ Lacey, he'll have some insights there, I guess.
Yeah. It's fun thinking about Arch running options. All right. Ian, sadly, you suffered a humiliating loss in flag football. You were exposed. You were taken to the shed. You were left bare on the field. Unfortunately, your team lost. Your aggression was finally used against you. The dreaded RPO was brought onto the field, and they were able to neutralize you and your players. It was a sad day for Inside Texas football. The coach that beat you watches this program.
Shout out, Gene.
Shout out, Gene. A real strategist on the field. Ian, what occurred? I guess it was Saturday. What occurred? Why was your defense not able to stop the RPO? And once again, how old are these kids playing flag right now?
9 and 10, I think.
Okay.
They're in 4th grade.
Yeah. So what happened on the battlefield?
I could show you a clip of our last regular season game where we played like the worst team in the league. And my son scored a touchdown, and I clipped it on my Substack, americaswargame.substack.com.
Oh.
And it's really funny because I'll be talking on all this high level. Then I show you this clip of, it was like a poor example of how high level the game can be. But it was like my son snaps the ball, and the quarterback just immediately kind of tosses it to him, and the kids are just kind of staring, and he's behind them, and he just goes the length of the field for a touchdown, and it's hilarious. So here's what happened was we had to beat this team in week 3 to make the playoffs, and they had scored like 79 points in 2 games and given up 0. So they were cooking. They were cooking everybody.
Wow. Yeah.
And we ended up beating them 18-8. They scored on their first drive. That we figured out which of their kids was super fast. Started keeping a closer eye on him. And our scheme all year was we blitz 2. We have corners outside that keep everything inside. And then we have a robber in the middle that reads the quarterback's eyes and kind of cleans things up.
So it's 5-on-5.
5-on-5. And then for them, we actually started moving both of our blitzers to the left because we had been having trouble with some of the teams that ran the ball well. And so we're like, if we blitz both of our guys from the left, then we're going to be able to take away half the field for their run game.
And route the run game where it
and route the run game right. So we did that to them. We stuffed them. They were trying to figure things out. It's really hard. There's you watch us do it, and you're like, well, there's holes all over the field to throw it. So let's just throw it. And then you try to throw it with a 3rd or 4th grader quarterback, and we pick 6 you because we have zone defenders and we have a robber. And it's theoretically, yeah, this is open. But when a 3rd or 4th grader has 2 kids running at him,
but can you execute?
You can't. You can't.
Yeah.
So we were when we played bad teams, we would get up like 3 touchdowns just with pick sixes, like in a hurry. It was great. Well, I was talking to Coach Gene during the game.
Gene went to the whiteboard, dude.
He went to the whiteboard with his staff. And I went over and was talking to him during the game. He's a great guy. And the game was in hand for his team. He was like, yeah, we couldn't figure out your defense in the game. And so we like went to the whiteboard and came up with this play. And then we used it the next week and immediately like scored like a full length field touchdown with it. I think the play, we didn't get to talk very long, but I'm pretty sure the play he was referring to was this RPO they ran, because the RPO destroyed us. The trick in this game is that your blitzers have to line up 7 steps back. There's no blocking.
Right.
And so your blitzers have to declare themselves by alignment, basically. And the quarterback cannot hold the ball for more than 7 seconds, or else the play's rolled dead. But he also cannot advance the ball by running.
Okay.
So 5-on-5, you would be like 4 verticals, put your fastest kid at quarterback and let him scramble 70% of the time and run circles because the field is so open.
Right. But you can't do that.
You can't do that. And you can't pressure the quarterback unless you line up deep. The loophole is that if you give it to the quarterback, you have to snap it to the quarterback. But then if he hands it to the running back, there's no more rules about that.
Okay, so now he can start.
So you slip the quarterback or you slip the center down the field on a pop pass, and the running back can pull up and throw or run. So they would, I don't even remember the exact play they did.
Do you put your quarterback at running back in that situation then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Your best thrower.
Yeah.
When I had to go to the whiteboard after this game. It was just tortured. We lost 24-0. And we'd lost 26-0 to the best team in the league the week before. So we're just
that was
really consecutive shutouts to end the year. Humiliation galore. And when I whiteboarded it, I was like, oh my gosh, that our robbers in a terrible run pass conflict. And so, and watching it play out, like the running back would pull up, and then our corners and our robber would be like, oh shoot, I need to get back. Yeah. And then he would just run circles, and our leverage was totally busted, and they would run circles around us.
That's
or tough. On one play, I don't know if they were reading the robber or the corner, but on one play, my kid was at corner, and their quarterback gets it, the running back gets it, and then he like starts to pull up. And my kid had been running it from corner to go get him. And then the kid that he was supposed to be covering on a pass, but he doesn't know if it's a run or a pass.
Right. The
running back has the ball. It just runs. It's just wide open behind him. And my wife just starts shrieking. She's like, no, get back, get back.
It's a trap. It's a trap.
My kid tried to recover and then did one of those things where like he's trying to gauge the ball's arrival. And he does this kind of weird jump. Goes over his head and they score.
Yeah.
He's like, everyone's yelling at me from the sideline. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So
and the play is designed to make sure you don't know what to do.
Yeah. So we got cooked pretty bad. And then when I was looking at it, I was like, there is no great answer for this in our defense. We have run pass conflicts everywhere.
When you're blitzing 2 every time?
When we're blitzing 2 every time.
Yeah.
So actually my post today on Substack is I lay all this out and I describe the new defense that I found someone describe on Reddit that we're going to install next season and use that instead.
Yeah. Gene, buy a subscription. You'll be able
to. On us, honestly.
Yeah.
It should be on us for the lesson that he handed us.
So were you literally blitzing 2 every time, or are you exaggerating? Oh, you would literally every time.
Every play. Worked really good until it didn't.
So it's a typical football thing where like your run game works until you play the elite teams. Is it like it just doesn't scale at the max?
So it would seem.
Yeah.
It's also
that's tricky, right? So you put quarterback at running back, you give him a handoff, he runs, you have your corner your receiver, if he plays back on the corner plays back, then you just continue running, scrambling, right? And then if he comes down, the corner comes down and tries to take away the running back, then he just pops it over his head.
Yep. I think I'm going to install it and run it next year too. But
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
I'm going to do it with the center. They had a few really good players. And one of their kids, I don't think every kid in our league is actually able to do that. Or you can be on the move and like pull up and actually
Right.
throw the
Just
ball.
just physically at that age, yeah.
Physically, that's not the easiest thing. And to do it accurately, and you still have people chasing you.
Right.
So I think I'm going to install it where we do it where the center releases to the side that the running back is running. And then I'm going to tell him, like, pull up for a second and look at the center. And if he's open, hit him. And if he's not, pull it back down. And usually these kids, once they see the guy pull up, they stop and they freeze. And then when you hit running again, if you have a quick enough kid, their leverage is shot and you're going to look like Vince Young.
So is that one of the strongest quarterbacks in the league that was able to do that?
There's this one team that won the championship that we didn't even play that had just smoked this team. And I went over and watched a little bit of it after we got smoked in our semifinal. And like just the little I was watching, their kid like hit a bomb down the field. And I asked Coach Gene, I was like, what's the score? He was like, 34-6.
So the RPO got you this week, but you took a loss the week before, right?
Yeah.
What happened there? Would you just get out athleted, or did you get out schemed?
Mostly. Well, they ran like a veer and shoot type deal.
Dude, I love these schemes are far more complex than I thought they would be.
They're kind of not. They're like, it's really like, what's the best way you can come up with to make it really simple to get the fast kid the ball in space?
Yeah.
And theirs was really simple. So it's 5-on-5. They have center, quarterback, running back. Running back would be one of their two huge fast kids. The receivers, they would line up on the far ends of the field, like wide splits.
Yeah.
This team drives me nuts because they've beaten us 4 times now, once for a championship, once in a semifinal. And they missed the championship game this year and just ceded it to that other team with the kid who can throw.
Yeah.
Because the kids play together like baseball, flag football. It's like the same kids and the same coaches in every sport, every season. And I'm like, 2 kids I know from last season. One of them's my son. 7 or 8 totally new kids who may or may not know how to play flag football. And I have to try to whip them into shape to beat this like select team. It's really tough.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind, Splendid Daddy. I'm playing a stack deck here.
I pay to read this guy's content and he can't win. Yeah, guys, Ian's working. Mississippi State's probably too harsh. But he's up against Georgia guys.
Yeah, I'm like Mississippi State with Dak Prescott because I've had a game. But okay.
Because at the end of the day, it's still about athletes and athletics, guys. Scheme is nice, but you need the ballers.
So the Veer and Shoot team, they would hand off to the running back, and then they would have the center kind of go out and screen in the way of the blitzer, which is illegal. But I was like, okay, guys, they're going to hand off to the fast kid. We're going to blitz from the left. Robber, the ball's going to come back to you on the right. Right corner, the ball's going to come back to you on the right. And they ran it on the first play of the game, and the robber over pursued, and the cutback beat him, and then he beat the corner to the edge.
So he housed it.
And then our fastest blitzer chased him down in midfield. I was like, guys, that's exactly what we wanted. Robber, he's going to be coming to you over here. Same thing happens. This time we don't even catch it, and he houses it and scores. And I was like, okay. I have to put
That's a different thing, yeah.
I have to put the best tackler in the field at Robber because I'm kind of funneling him to a kid that's not up for this.
What's the playbook depth? Like if you're on offense, how many plays are you running? 5?
Man, we ran too many, I think.
Well, I can see that being a problem with you because you're so cerebral and schematic based, but like
No,
on average.
Not for me. I didn't call the offense.
Oh, you didn't?
I'm not the guy that's what my wife was like. Are you sure you're just going to try to do too much? And
Yeah, that's what I felt.
I believe in efficiency. I want the like. I would spend all my time trying to come up with the one perfect scheme that answers 90% of the problems, than trying to go back to the whiteboard. And that does not work with these kids.
Yeah.
Like you have to just to execute a handoff with timing and rhythm, where the spacing and the angles actually hit in a way that's remotely dangerous. You have to rep the handoff a bunch of times.
Yep.
And then you have 5-on-5, but your roster is like 9 kids, and they all need to play. They're all paying. They're here to play and have fun.
Right, for sure.
So then you end up having to teach. Like, you get out on the field, and it's like, we used to have problems where we would teach it one way. We would teach a new play in practice. Then you get out on the field, and then you don't have any of the kids that you practiced with in the right positions. And then they're like botch the double reverse or whatever. And you're like one clean handoff from breaking a long run, but then they forget who's there. And,
Splendid Daddy, the worst on-field coach. No, they're here to win, not to have fun.
Well, we're trying to win.
I'm trying to do both.
Trying to do it the right way. So the variant shoot team, honestly, schematically, I thought we had them totally figured out, and they just beat us to the corner a couple times. And once they were on the sideline, those kids were so hard to
track down.
They were so hard to track down. There were so many times where they would be like, I'd be like, well, at least he's going to go out of bounds. And then they'd like make a cut, and then they were back. They were really good.
I remember in Pee Wee football, there was always like that one dad in the league that was taking it like so seriously. And then occasionally you'd have a team play each other, and they had opposing dads. And one time the opposing dads did get into a fist fight over a 11-year-old football game. It was a championship, apparently high pressure, a lot of high emotions, but there were 2 crazy football dads that did throw down.
Bad dad.
Yeah.
At South Park.
Yeah. And it was real funny. But also both of those dads clearly knew that their kid, because both of their kids ended up being like prominent high school starters. And, in Denton, Texas, where I'm from, like high school starters matter. So it's like they did realize apparently that they had athletes, but man, I remember that. It's stuck in my brain from that event happening.
My youngest son is just getting into soccer and finally learning how to play. Like, he actually chases the ball now and kicks it.
Yeah.
And he's got a teammate whose dad played fullback in the NFL.
Yeah.
And his teammate in the first game scored like 9 or 10 goals.
Yeah. Yeah. You see the innate ability there sometimes as well.
He just has this like stick-to-itiveness where he's just like, you're
getting a fullback in the NFL, so you're getting a genetically gifted person, but you're also selecting for a fullback, which is a mental position. So now you've got genetics and this type of focus. That's an interesting dad to have.
I think the mom might be an athlete too. So something that happens in America now is that you have this sort of like, it's basically a eugenics effect where people meet and marry in college.
Yeah.
And you have like all these athletes where like the dad will go to college for this sport, and then he's in the athletic complex, and then he meets like a
track mom.
Yeah. And they have all these things in common, and then they get married, and they have all these children that have freak athletic genes on both sides of the equation.
Yep.
And then you end up with like,
well, that's why you'll even hear like with our recruiting experts, they'll be, the dad was an NFL player, the mom played college basketball. Like they mention like what the mom does too, because it equally matters. It's still 50% of your genetics. But you're right. Yeah, they do end up meeting other athletes. And then one of the kids I knew who played pro baseball, he was like 6'8" or whatever, but both of his parents were basketball players. And so he was just destined from birth to be a pro athlete. It's a thing.
Arch Manning will tell you that his speed came from his mom. Yeah. I don't know what she did, but I guess she was splendid.
My parents met at the food stamps office. Yeah, but they created a Splendid Daddy out of it. So that's a positive, dude. It's
Arch is a lot thicker than his dad. I don't know if that's because his dad is like not aimed to be in football shape in 60 years or whatever, but seems like he's also just like thicker.
yeah. Do you see the Uber commercial?
I didn't watch it. It feels like Arch all of a sudden has like 10 commercials that I've seen.
Yeah, it was good. They had Archie, Arch, and his dad.
Yeah.
So you get the whole Manning, and man, all of them are funny and sharp, dude. It's a fun family. But yeah, Red Bull and Uber, not a bad partnership. Ian, do you have any final words? I love when I tell myself. I was gonna say I tell myself not to do it because it like forces the other person to come up with thought. No one ever just goes nope. So I gotta quit. Everyone does that on every show. Any final thoughts? And they like have to make something up on the spot. But
no, I had something and then I remembered I was gonna issue a threat to Coach Gene.
Okay, good.
We'll be coming for him in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
Then I remembered he said that him and his son were gonna do soccer. So
also, Jane, if you want to beat Ian, just subscribe to a Substack where you can where he gives you exactly what he's gonna do. Which is also funny. So Gene, heads up, just I think it's what are you charging, 5 or 10 a month?
10 a month, yeah.
Yeah, 10 a month, guys, and you can anticipate all of Ian's attacks.
Or if you are just interested in coaching flag football, particularly at the crossover with their 5-on-5 rules in North Austin, and you want a guide that's better than the stupid practice plans that they offer you, where you are running like a gazillion plays your kids can't do, and they barely have any running plays, which is what all the winning teams are doing, come subscribe to the Substack, and you will get more flag football strategy than you could ever want. And also I talk about college football usually.
Yeah, and also college football, whatever. Also, subscribe to InsideTexas.com, guys.
Value
added. That's all we do. And then in a couple hours, we're going to be filming Inside Texas Basketball. We're now covering baseball and basketball as well, guys. So if you're into that, come check it out. Probably not the most fun to cover basketball right now, but baseball has been enjoyable. But that'll be out in a few hours as well, guys.
Texas baseball, man. We got to tap into the people, fill out that stadium. So whoever they are, come watch our channel. God knows it's probably not much else for you out there in the media landscape. So
for sure. All right, fans, thanks for hanging out. Ian, thanks for your time, and hook 'em, y'all.